Welcome to Speak Life with Dr. Amy Chai. Information for your best life. Now, here's Amy Chai.
Hi, everyone, and welcome once again to Speak Life. And I am Dr. Amy Chai. And today, the title of this program is called Why Can't I Lose Weight? And this is such an important topic that this is probably just going to be the first in a number of programs about why we can't lose weight. So I'm sure like all of us have been online and we've seen like a very ripped young man saying, you can look just like me with this beautiful six-pack abs if you only buy these supplements for only $29.95. Or you see a young woman saying, there's just one secret to weight loss that's permanent, and it's learning how to move your hips in a certain way or use a certain kind of an exercise app. You have the fasting, you have the apps, you have the ketosis, you have everything. In fact, weight loss, it's a $78 billion industry in the United States annually, and that's 2019 numbers. Who knows? After COVID, probably a lot more people need to lose weight. I know I do. But why is it so hard to lose weight? And why is it that once we lose weight, it's so impossible to keep it off? What's going on? And I want you to listen very, very carefully, because there's a lot of people who are going to say, well, it's just calories in versus calories out. Well, guess what? It's not that simple. And you're not going to find the answers on the internet at these places where they're trying to take your money either. So the information that I got by spending a full week at a conference, spending thousands of dollars to learn this topic. And I'm going to present it to you for free. And this is the real deal. I'm going to tell you about why you can't lose weight. Now, I'm sure you've had people say, you just have to have more willpower. It's all your fault. Or you just have to work harder. You have to work out more. You have to do more, be more, and work harder. And it's all your fault. Well, guess what? I'm here to tell you today, it's not your fault, full stop. And I'm going to tell you why. I want you to listen very carefully. And if you have somebody that needs to listen to this, that needs to hear this, pause and get that person in the room right now. Okay? So we know, and all of us who've done kind of yo-yo dieting in the past, is losing weight is one thing, but keeping it off is another thing entirely. And I think a lot of women find this out for themselves after the first baby comes along. You've got some baby fat, you work hard to get it off, and then your body just keeps wanting to gain back that baby fat. And it just becomes harder and harder and harder to lose that weight. That doesn't make sense, does it? Well, we do know that if you lose 20% of your body fat, now let's say you were 240 pounds and you wanted to get down to 200 pounds, that's about 20% of your body weight, losing 40 pounds when you're around 200 pounds. Now, out of people who've managed to lose 20% of their body weight, not even 5% can maintain that weight loss after just 1 year. That's insane. What is going on? Is it that they're just terrible people, that they can't stop eating pizza and drinking beer. What is going on that makes people continue to yo-yo diet, continue to gain weight, continue to struggle, trying every single diet in the book? What's going on? Well, I'll tell you the answer. The answer is that your body adapts to calorie restriction. Now, what does that mean? That means that there is biology that drives your weight gain. And it also means that your body will fight to maintain the set point that your hypothalamus has set to be your weight. And once you gain weight, your brain thinks that that's where you're supposed to be. And every time you lose weight, the body is terrified. The body thinks that you're literally starving. So there's a number of things that happen. And things that aren't your fault about weight gain are many. You have your mental health, you have your physical health, you have the medications that you take, you have your family members who sometimes will undermine your efforts. Maybe you have problems exercising. You have genetics, you have epigenetics, and you have hormones. But today, I'm actually just going to talk about hormones, and they might not be the hormones that you're very familiar with. So I'm going to get started explaining exactly what those hormones are that change your brain to gain back every single pound that you lost, that you worked so hard to lose. What's going on? Are you lazy? Are you a failure? No. You are a victim of biology, and your biology is trying to keep you alive. Isn't that nice? It's very kind of your biology to try to keep you alive, but there are problems with that. Now, I'm going to try to make an analogy. How does your body know how much food is enough food, right? I mean, animals out in the wild, they're driven by their biology to seek food and eat a certain amount of food. And, animals in the wild, you don't see struggling with their weight because their brain is telling them what to eat, right? Well, your brain, as a matter of fact, has some really wonderful ways to decide what your fuel status is. And I'm going to bring up this slide. Okay, so we've all had a time in our car when we're low on fuel, right? We're driving along the highway, we're trying to get where we're going, we're not quite sure where we're going. We're worried when we see that gauge go down to the E, what's going to happen to us? And you get this familiar feeling of panic, thinking, oh no, I'm going to run out of fuel. What am I going to do? Right? Has that ever happened to you? Well, what do you do when you're running low on fuel? Well, there's two things you can do. The first thing that you do is you try to use less fuel. So you'll try to drift up to that stoplight really carefully instead of like zooming up to the stoplight and slamming on your brakes. You'll just kind of take your foot off the gas and you kind of drift up to the stoplight. You might take your foot off the pedal and kind of go down a hill and try to gain a little momentum going down the hill. You're not going to gun your motor. You're going to try to lose as little fuel as you can. You maybe try to take a shortcut. Anything you can do to use less fuel when you're running on empty. What else? Well, the next thing you're thinking of is, how am I going to get more fuel? Now, getting more fuel becomes the most important thing in your mind. You're Googling, you're saying, like, where's the nearest gas station? I've got to get to the nearest gas station. And then when you finally see that gas station, just as you're about to run out of gas, you're like, oh, thank goodness, I'm going to fill up right now. I'm going to fill the tank completely up. Well, that's a lot like what your body does too. And I'm going to have another slide up here, and it's going to kind of show you what your body does when your body's low on fuel. So, when your body is low on fuel, you don't have a fuel gauge like I have here in the middle. You don't have something that's going to say, I'm running on empty. But what your body does have is a brain, and it has something called a hypothalamus. And there is a weight set point in that hypothalamus. And the body knows when it's running low on fuel. So, one of the things that the body will do when it's running low on fuel is to use less fuel. Now, what does that mean? Well, it means that if you don't have enough nutrition, your body is going to run more efficiently. And one of the ways it does that is to make sure that the muscles are running more efficiently. So, all the work that you do, all the workouts that you do, all the walking that you do, all the biking that you do burns less calories because your brain is pretty smart. It doesn't want you to run out of food, it doesn't want you to starve. The other thing that'll happen is your basal metabolic rate will decrease. You know, it's like if you're in the house and you know your oil's low, you're not going to crank up the heat, right? Because you don't want to run out of oil. Plus, it costs so much. So you're going to run it a little colder in your house because you want to save a little money. You don't want to waste fuel, right? Your body's the same way. Now, there was a show called The Biggest Loser, and it showed that even 6 years out from the big weight loss that they had, they were using, 600 calories less per day in their basal metabolic rate. So people at the same weight would be like burning fuel a lot more rapidly than the people who lost weight. So the one thing the body does when it thinks you're starving is it shuts down your metabolism. The other thing your body does when it thinks you're starving is it makes you think constantly about getting more fuel. Just like you're looking for that gas station, you're thinking, oh my gosh, if I don't get to the gas station pretty soon, it's going to be really bad for me. I might run out of gas. And so the same thing happens with your body. Let me take this one down now. So today I want to talk to you about hormones, okay? The hormones that control the brain, and specifically the hormones that control how the brain thinks about whether or not you're low on fuel, okay? And you've probably heard of these two hormones before. These hormones are leptin and ghrelin. So these hormones are not the only hormones that have to do with metabolism and weight, but they're the ones that I'm going to focus on just a little bit today. So the first thing we're going to talk about is a hormone called ghrelin. Now, ghrelin is made in the stomach. And as you can see, the little green monster that's going grrr is the sound of your stomach rumbling from hunger, because ghrelin makes you feel like you are constantly hungry. And there's other things that are going on as well. And those are hormones that come from your intestine. And those hormones from your intestine, and I'm not going to list them all because there are several of them. The hormones that are from your intestines tell you that you are full, okay? So you may feel full after a meal until you've lost weight. And once you've lost weight, your level of ghrelin goes up and it stays up. And what that means is that you're always going to be feeling hungry. And it's very interesting because they also did what's called functional MRI studies, or fMRI. And this is where they put your brain through one of those tubes and they look at it with some glucose molecules in it. So those MRI studies, when people had lost weight, those MRI studies just lit up the part of the brain that deals with thinking about food. Okay. So when you lose weight, your brain is entirely jacked up. Okay. It's completely jacked up. All you can do is think about eating. You're hungry. You never feel full. You're always thinking about eating. And those are some signals that are very hard to deal with. And those signals are always in your body. And those signals aren't ever going to go away after your weight loss. And that's why we sometimes see people who are doing, and let me take this down. That's why we see people often do something called yo-yo dieting. It's where you lose some weight, you feel great about yourself, and then a year later, the weight has mostly come back, sometimes even more than before, and you start beating yourself up. You say, why am I gaining this weight back? That's crazy. It's all my fault. But be a little bit more forgiving with yourself, because guess what? It isn't your fault. It isn't your fault. It's much harder to maintain the behaviors that led to your weight loss after you've lost the weight, because you're going to be bombarded with ghrelin that makes you feel hungry, that makes you feel starving. And the hormones in your intestines that make you feel full and happy and satisfied after a meal are going to be less. So not only are you be hungrier, but you're going to feel full. You won't feel full as quickly. So that's a real problem. Okay. So that affects your behaviors, that affects your likelihood of choosing foods that might be more fattening, or for eating more frequently, or snacking. And that's a really hard thing to beat. So let me bring up the next hormone, and that is called leptin. Now, leptin is a hormone that is made actually in your fat tissue, okay? So this leptin, what it does is it signals the brain that the stores of nutrition, the fuel stores, are quite full, okay? So you want to have nice, good, full stores of fuel. And that calms the brain down and makes the brain think, okay, you're ready to go. We're ready to go exercise. We feel good. We feel energetic. We have a normal metabolic rate. Everything is A-okay. Everything is just fine. And it's all because of what leptin does in your brain. It helps your body set what we call the biological set point, okay? But what happens when we lose body fat? Now, everybody knows, we're all trying to eat enough protein so that when we lose weight, we're losing body fat and we're not losing muscle. And that's really important. But when you do lose the body fat, something surprising happens. The level of leptin drops drastically, dramatically, and out of proportion to how much fat you have lost. So what happens then? Well, leptin tells your brain that your fat stores are being depleted. And what that does to your brain is the brain says, whoa, caution, slow down. We can't have depletion of our fat stores. That might kill us and we won't survive through the winter. So what does it do? There's a number of things that the brain does when leptin decreases. And I'm going to talk about that. Let me just pull this down. Okay. So, what happens when leptin decreases and you don't have as much leptin going to your brain? Well, one of the important things that happens is that your metabolism, it actually slows down. It causes changes in the metabolism of your thyroid hormone. And it also makes you feel colder, like your whole body, your hands and feet might feel cold. It also decreases your sense of energeticness, energy. And pretty much what happens is that what we call the adrenergic tone, or it's also known as the fight or flight hormones, adrenaline, that tends to go down after you've lost weight. So there's a number of things that go on in the body that gets your body to decrease the usage of fuel after you lose the fat. Okay. So you're going to gain weight a lot quicker because, it's going to take less calories for you to actually gain the weight back than it would if someone had never gained and lost weight at all. So your calorie deficit, for example, if you're one of those people who lost maybe 10 to 20% of their body weight during a diet, what's going to happen? You're going to have a 300 calorie deficit compared to people who didn't lose any weight or didn't need to lose weight. So you can have two people, both of them weighing 200 pounds, and yet the person who lost weight to get to 200 pounds is going to require 300 fewer calories to maintain the 200 pounds. So you're already starting out at a real disadvantage with someone who didn't gain weight and lose it at all. So I think what we're seeing, and let me bring up this slide again. Just like the car, when you're low on fuel, you can use less fuel. And by using less fuel, that would be slowing your metabolism, making your muscles more efficient so you don't burn as many calories when you exercise, changing some of your hormones like the adrenaline and the thyroid hormones that helps your body to lose less fuel. The other thing you do when you're low on fuel is you constantly, aggressively try to get more fuel. And what that is your brain telling you that it's time to eat again, and it's time to eat more calorie-dense foods. So when you're thinking about how you're blaming yourself, you're beating yourself up, you're thinking, oh my gosh, how could I possibly put this weight back on after all the work and all the effort I put in? Why am I plateauing? Why can't I keep this weight off long term? Why do I have to keep going up and down and up and down? That's why. It's because your body alters its metabolism. It adapts to change. It adapts your behaviors. It adapts your metabolism. So it is biology, not willpower, that's driving this return of your weight gain. So you just have to remember that this sort of thing is not your fault, okay? And I'm not going to have time to do it today, but I believe in our next video, I'm going to talk a little bit about how to outsmart some of these biological adaptations. But today I just want to kind of wrap it up by talking a little bit about how physicians sometimes see people who are struggling with their weight. I've seen it over and over again. Um, People who haven't really been trained on metabolism, diet, and obesity often make things worse by shifting the blame onto the patient. And that's counterproductive, it's wrong, and it's actually unscientific. So, next time anyone tells you, oh, it's just calories in versus calories out, um, you should really direct them to this video and say, hey, it's really not that simple. All of the people who lost all of that weight on the world's biggest loser, on average, gained at least 70% of their weight back. And many of them also gained more than what they originally weighed before. And their metabolism is still abnormal. So this is something that's very, very hard to beat. And like I said, the next video, I'm going to be talking about some strategies to try to beat out these biological adaptations a little bit, okay? But I want people to start thinking about obesity in a new way. The new way is that obesity is a disease. It is a disease that is caused by a number of different factors, including mental health, including physical health, including medications, including genetics and epigenetics, including environment, and as we learn today, including hormones that probably a lot of people haven't even really heard about. So I want you to be encouraged. I want you to think about ghrelin that makes you feel hungry after you've lost weight, and the intestinal peptides that decrease and so you don't feel full anymore. How are you going to beat that, right? How are you going to stop thinking about filling your tank? The other thing you're going to have to be thinking about is understanding that your metabolism has been slowed, and probably permanently so. So how are you going to fight back, if you will? How are you going to fight back against the metabolic changes that the decreased leptin has caused in your body? So I know that was a lot to go through in a half hour. I know that some of this is probably new to you, but I really hope that you'll be keeping up with this series called Why Can't I Lose Weight? Learning a little bit about weight, metabolism, diet, and what we know about how our body reacts to change, such as weight loss. And I think for all of you out there who struggle, you're not alone. It's not your fault. You're struggling against biology. I want you to know that. I want you to feel that as we take a journey together to try to be as healthy as we can possibly be. And we're going to talk about that some more next time on Speak Life. And until then, whenever you see somebody, don't forget to speak a little bit of life into their world. So I'll see you next time.
Tune in next time for Speak Life with Dr. Amy Chai at ctpolitics.tv.